Thank you very much, Jim, for that introduction. And I'm delighted to be able to be here today to speak on something which is both a very great commitment and passion of the government, of the First Minister, and also of myself as a junior minister within the education portfolio. The government's main priority for this session has been education and achieving excellence and equity within that. That equity section includes many different guises, but gender equality is a very, very important part of that. It's a defining mission of the government to ensure that everyone has access to high quality, world-class education, no matter where you come from, no matter where you're brought up, and no matter what your gender is. And our commitment to equality is also at the core of Scotland's economic strategy, with our overarching theme of being both competitive and fairer. And those are mutually supportive goals. The creative society which we all want, and a fairer society, is not just a desirable goal, it's an absolutely essential one for sustained long-term economic growth. But still in the 21st century, and you'll know examples, I'm sure, within your own experiences, we still have women who are paid less than men for what they do. Now, the causes and the drivers of the gender pay gap are very complex, and you could spend a whole day just looking at that. But it is something that we still need to recognise is going on in our society and across many, many different sectors. Now, the women's employment figures for Scotland do fare well against the rest of the UK, and full-time and overall pay gaps in Scotland have been reducing in the long term. But it is simply unacceptable that still there is a persistent pay gap between men and women, and that needs to continue to be challenged in absolutely every format that we see it in. And it is still in education that we see that, particularly in higher education, and we need to continue to challenge that. Now, the segregation and the gender stereotyping that we face as women can start at a very early age. I know not that just through my own experience, but through being the mum of two young girls. You see the challenges that they face, that all our young women are facing as they grow up in our society, where stereotypes are continuously made about what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what boys should be doing, what boys shouldn't be doing. And that's a general societal problem. It's much wider than our education sector, but education has to play an absolutely integral role in challenging those gender stereotypes at every format. Now, that has to start right in the early years and all the way through, but colleges still play a very important part in that because it's still going on today, and unfortunately I can't see it ending anytime soon. So we do have to ensure that we are challenging it in every area that our young women are growing up in, and education must play an absolutely vital role in that. So that's why improving gender equality and diversity across the college sector is so important. And it is important to recognise that it's not just about the challenges that young women face going into certain careers, but also the stereotypes that are around the careers that men should go into. Many of the visits that I do to colleges and universities, we discuss women into STEM, and I'll speak about that a bit later. But we also see great examples of the work that colleges in particular are doing to ensure that we get more men into childcare, more men into social care, more men into the nursing profession. So we need to tackle gender equality in all areas and in all guises. But the college sector is doing a great deal on gender equality, and we should rightly be proud of that. Women account for the majority of college enrolments, albeit 51%, so just the majority, but I'll take that. The number of young women studying full-time courses has increased by over 12% since 2006-07. And I appreciate that part-time courses also sometimes suit women and indeed men better. So it's important to recognise that still around 2/3 of the college enrolments that we have are on part-time FE courses. So there are a variety and a myriad of opportunities for everyone to study at college in the way that's best suited for them. And that has to continue, and as a government we have to ensure that we are continuing to encourage that, whether it's male or female, young or old, full-time or part-time. The college sector has to have an avenue open to them to improve their educational opportunities. But it is at that subject level, as I mentioned earlier, that we see the gender inequality. It's entrenched, unfortunately, within some subjects, over decades, over centuries of traditions about the stereotypes that we have. And it will take a great degree of challenge for the policy and practice that we have to make those opportunities open up for whether it's young women or girls. Now, in response to the Developing the Young Workforce, Scotland's Youth Employment Strategy, the Scotland's Funding Council, the Scottish Funding Council has developed a gender action plan to address gender imbalance at subject level, both at college and university. The Funding Council published their plan in August last year, and I don't want to steal Michael Cross's thunder, who I believe will be talking about it in a little while, but he will set out the work that's been going through that in terms of the ambitious targets for increasing the gender minority share in the most imbalanced subject areas, affecting both male and female learners. And there's a significant step that needs to be taken to ensure that those actually come to fruition. They are indeed challenging targets. So I know that change won't happen overnight. I know this is a long-term ambition based on the targets that are set in that gender action plan. But we can see some changes already happening, which I'm extremely heartened by. For example, in mechanical engineering in colleges, there's been an increased proportion of women in each of the last 5 years, rising from 6% in 2011-12 to 8.5% in 2015-16. Now that's an increase, that's an improvement. I'm not trying to tell me anybody in the room would think that's satisfactory though, and I think that's the challenge. We can all point to improvements, but still when you take a step back, it's absolutely nowhere near where we should be, both as a society and what our economy needs. So it's encouraging and it's a step in the right direction, but we need to monitor that progress, push that progress still further, whether it's through each institution's own gender action plan or through their outcome agreements. There has to be transparency in the targets that are set, in what's being done to achieve those targets, and a genuine debate about when those targets aren't met, about the lessons learned, so that we can move on from that, because these targets will have to be challenging and stretch targets. They shouldn't be easy for colleges or universities to actually reach. But much of the gender imbalance that we see certainly with women relates to the subjects within STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics. So last November we we published our draft STEM strategy, specifically designed to encourage more people to get in and specialise in STEM. Now there's a great deal of work going on before we publish the final strategy in around September, but it will very much be built on the themes of inspiration, right from the early years all the way through primary, secondary, college and university. Every single aspect of our education system will have to play a part. It will have to start at an early age, because one of the most depressing tables that was shown to me not long after I became minister was the leak of young women who have an interest in STEM with their young girls, and we lose them continuously every single part of the education process as they go along for a myriad of different reasons, but we lose talented individuals at every step along the way. And one of the challenges we have within the STEM strategy is doing something about that. We can all agree that gender inequality is a bad thing and we want to see it change, but it will be the action that we take as a government, it will be the action that colleges take as institutions and our universities that can only make the difference in that. So inspiration will be a key theme, and colleges will have a vital role to play in that. One of the examples which I've seen within the education system is from the Institute of Physics about improving gender balance, really challenging the unconscious bias that many in our society have, both for female and male roles. It's a great example of what can be done when we challenge ourselves in a positive way to think about what we're doing and think about the decisions that we as individuals, as departments or as institutions can take on. So there are positive trends within education. For example, in 2007, the number of passes that girls had in mainstream higher education qualifications, including mathematics and computing, have been up since 2007 by 6%. But again, that's simply not good enough. We are seeing progress within our colleges, but again, it's not enough. Now, there are a number of examples, and I'll sure you'll hear about them today from a number of different speakers, about the work that's going on in different colleges to encourage gender equality. One of the examples I saw recently was on a visit to the City of Glasgow, where I met women who were taking part in the HNC engineering course, specifically targeted at women. Now, I have to say, I was exceptionally sceptical about that as a solution. It's not something that sits inherently with me as setting up a specific women's project in engineering would be the way to solve that. But I can't get away from the fact that the women who were on that had said it was exceptionally successful for them and had encouraged them and developed them to carry on in engineering. So we need to get past our own biases sometimes about what works and what doesn't, and actually ask the students themselves what works and what doesn't, and take inspiration from that. Now, that example won't be applicable to all colleges, to all courses, nor should it be. Colleges are different sizes, different shapes, and have different priorities. But it is an example of a college taking positive action to ensure that women are encouraged to go into STEM. And we're building on this progress by investing £1.5 million over the next 3 academic years through the Funding Council to do exactly more of that. We're working on modern apprenticeships as well through Skills Development Scotland to tackle the underrepresentation in our apprenticeship programme, and they also have an Equalities Action Plan. That's due to publish very soon, and I'm looking forward to monitoring the progress that we've made in that. I also want to touch on gender balance on college boards as well. Well, colleges, as I've said, have great examples of what goes on within different subject areas, and the sector overall can be rightly proud about where we are with female students. We still need to do a great deal more to demonstrate that college boards are representative of the communities and the regions which they serve. The key priority for this government is to create 50-50 gender balance and representation in public boards, and that of course does apply to colleges. There's been countless research which demonstrates that involving more women in governance helps to create productivity, and I would challenge the colleges that they need to do more in this regard. Consultation on the draft Gender Representation on Public Boards Bill has recently closed. We're considering all the responses to that, but I don't accept that public bodies, and that includes our colleges, actually need to wait for that legislation to embrace change. There is no reason to wait for legislation to realise that your board should more represent the region which you serve. So while I've no doubt that colleges are committed to the issue, and indeed College Development Network, who I know has done a great deal on this, I still want to see faster progress on this, and I'll be monitoring that very carefully. So I'm taking a very close interest in the gender balance when board appointments come to me for approval, until I'm much more confident that all boards are moving in the right direction. I'll just mention briefly, of course, that while education is an important aspect of gender inequality, it's not something which sits in isolation within the Scottish Government. We're ensuring that we're doing a myriad of different policies which will hopefully drive gender equality, whether it's the commitment to almost double the number of free early years and childcare education, improving the living wage, funding Equate Scotland. We are developing a number of policies which will hopefully encourage gender equality. One of the Equate Scotland programmes, which I'm very pleased that the Scottish Government funds, for example, is about women returning to work. So not just looking at young women, young girls, but also women returners too. And we've announced additional funding of £200,000 to look at a programme which will allow women returners to get back into the workforce across a range of industrial sectors. The First Minister's also very recently established an advisory council on women and girls, which Young Scot Chief Executive Louise MacDonald chairs. And that advisory council will champion and be role models to girls and the advancement of women and girls in the workplace. So in conclusion, there's a lot going on within this area. There has been for some time, but there is still a tremendous way that we have to travel on this area. We can all point to, I think, good examples within our own institutions, within our own sectors about what works, but we need to continuously challenge ourselves about what more we need to do from their areas where we're not seeing fast enough action. That's certainly the role that I take within my sector as Minister, which we encourage within the wider education ministerial team. And I'm very pleased that it's something which the college sector has taken very seriously as well.